Brandy, a beloved singer and actress who was America's sweetheart, was a force to be reckoned with in the 90s teen pop scene. Such a positive role model for young girls to look up to, Brandy kept a squeaky clean image and did everything right. Had record-breaking platinum and eventual diamond-selling albums, a hit TV show that ran for 6 seasons, a movie career, she was a model and philanthropist. Going into the early 2000s, she got married to producer Robert Smith and started a family, giving birth to their daughter, Sarah, in June of 2002, after the release of her third album, Full Moon. Everything on the outside appeared to be coming along smoothly, but going into the next era was where the image of a perfect life began to unravel. Following the separation of Brandy and Robert in 2003, he would later reveal that they were never actually married and that they put on a front because at the time it was frowned upon for a young woman of Brandy's caliber to bear a child outside of wedlock. But the fact that they weren't honest about it rubbed people the wrong way. Also, the more sensual image of her fourth album, Aphrodisiac, marked a departure from her cutesy, clean-cut girl next door image, and the music reflected that. But this didn't connect with many audiences, and the album sales reflected that. For a further breakdown between these two eras, I recommend you all check out YouTuber Calvin Michaels' documentary from his So What Happened series. His assessments are the most in-depth and extensive look into the circumstances that played a role into the commercial reception of Brandy's Full Moon and Aphrodisiac albums. His perspectives are always on point, and he manages to showcase things that even I didn't know. Now this documentary picks up where his assessment leaves off, as Brandy would go on to face many more trials over the next two eras, both of which were preceded by tragic losses, and these events shook Brandy's core foundational beliefs, at times sending her into the deep, dark depths of despair. But out of the ashes would come about one of the most personal and forthright albums of her career, thrusting her into the pop music landscape. And later she'd release another album that would cement her staying power in R&B music. But today we're here to talk about the fifth era, Human. One that was rocky but brought about music that was honest, passionate, and quite creative. If there are any other artists you'd like to see covered in the Era Defined series, please leave your suggestions in the comments below. Let's get started. Now, following the critically acclaimed yet commercially disappointing era of Brandy's fourth album, Aphrodisiac, she expressed being at a point where she was wanting a change in musical direction. She had been signed to Atlantic Records for a decade, and it was a good run in the beginning, as she saw monumental success with her first two albums. But by now that success had plateaued, and she wanted a label that would give her the freedom to explore creatively and develop a new sound that would be a departure from her previous work. Therefore, she would request an unconditional release from her contract with Atlantic, and her contract would be completed with the release of a greatest hits collection, The Best of Brandy, in March of 2005, which featured 18 singles from her 4 studio albums, as well as songs she contributed to film soundtracks such as Waiting to Exhale and Set It Off. And though its sales were what you'd expect from a compilation package, the album did receive generally favorable reviews from critics who noted the creativity of Brandy's back catalog. She later told MTV, "I'm really proud of it. When you get a chance to step back, you notice all these great things you've done and all these great people that you've worked with. The album is a celebration of me being in the industry for so long, and I'm still going. I just thought it was a great idea to put 18 songs together of the best of everything that I've done. Made me feel really good. And also it's given me a reason to move on from everything I've done. I'm excited about putting it out and also putting it behind me." She then informed the news outlet that she was developing a Fox TV series centered around the everyday life as a single mom. She said, "I think it's going to be relatable for so many young girls out there with babies that don't really have a solid relationship." She said it could be cool with the father, but they don't really have a regular family life. "I'm going to let people know that it's cool to have a child and be young and still be a good mom. It's really tough, but I'm doing it. It may not be the best in someone else's eyes, but it's the best I can do." She planned to star as the lead character, but the series would remain in its infancy stage for close to a decade before she later teamed up with Deborah Martin Chase and BET picked it up. It would go on to become the short-lived series called Zoe Ever After in 2016. But back in 2005, Brandy would appear on an episode of House MD. Who all watched that show? House was my show, even though he was an a-hole. And Brandy also had a recurring role as Michelle McGinty on the UPN sitcom One on One. Her character was the sister of D-Mac, who was portrayed by Brandy's real-life brother, Ray J. Now, from the beginning of Brandy's career, Ray J had been involved in many of her projects, appearing in music videos of hers, guest featuring on a few of her album cuts, and even portraying her secret half-brother on her long-lived TV series, Moesha. If you know, you know. If you watch the show, then you know. And moving into the next eras, he'd play an integral part in her career and in their family's image, but more on that second part later. In the meantime, Ray J had started up a vanity label called Knockout Entertainment, which Brandy would sign to. And as a joint venture, they began shopping for her next record deal. Meanwhile, she would be featured on Ray J's next album, called Radiation, on a track called War Is Over, which was a tribute to fallen stars like Aaliyah, Biggie, Tupac, and Left Eye. The siblings also joined forces with fellow Knockout Entertainment artists Shorty Mac and Ashton to perform a supergroup called TKO, which stood for The Knockout, with plans to release a full-length album the following year. Brandy had also appeared on the song Bring Me Down by Kanye West for his Late Registration album. Going into 2006, she started experimenting with new sounds for her next project, tentatively titled Sweet Nothings, and began collaborating with a number of producers like Rock Wilder, Tim and Bob, and a Danish production team called Maximum Risk. Most of these songs were penned by Brandy's frequent collaborator, the late Kenesha Pratt, and out of the beginning sessions came beautiful songs like Cry, Honey, and the title track, Sweet Nothings, the last of which Brandy said she loved, and this song would become a fan favorite once it was leaked to the internet. Around this time, Brandy would also have a change in management, and her new team had arranged further recording sessions with fellow client Brian Michael Cox. And after a number of sessions, it was declared that he would become the official executive producer of the upcoming album in June of 2006. All was going well with recording new music, and despite still being unsigned to a major label, Brandy had her sights set on the future, and received a golden opportunity to be a judge on NBC's brand new competition show called America's Got Talent, which was created by Simon Cowell. Brandy would later state that the year prior she had made an appearance on American Idol as a guest judge. She said, and while I was there, Simon was teasing me saying, "Oh, we'd love to have you on American Idol full-time." So I told him I'd always want to be a judge. And I guess he remembered that because when he launched America's Got Talent, he brought me in as one of the full-time judges. Now the very first season was history in the making. Hosted by Regis, Brandy would join the judging panel alongside Piers Morgan and David Hasselhoff as they critiqued the fresh new talent coming in, and more than 12 million viewers would tune in to watch the premiere episode, becoming one of the most watched programs on US TV, even beating out American Idol's premiere numbers. America's Got Talent was the highest rated show among viewers aged 18 to 49 at that time. Reviews for the show were favorable for Brandy, who had some big shoes to fill as she was the only woman and person of color on the panel. Talk about being a minority representing the majority. But the audience and contestants loved them some Brandy, and it brought her a lot of newfound public interest, which was good for her because she was low-key eager to get back on the stage herself. She later told Blues and Soul magazine, "It was so much fun because David kept me laughing, Piers was so much like Simon, and just to see all the different diversity of talent was just great. Plus I got to dress up and wear all these different hairstyles every week. But while I definitely had a good time, eventually I just started to feel like, man, I should be the one up there and somebody should be judging my talent. You know, I basically just missed being on stage while sitting there behind the table with my glass of water." This experience fueled even more passion for Brandy's upcoming return to music. The show's first season wrapped at the end of summer 2006, and everything was on track for her next musical era. But the winter of 2006 would bring about the worst pain imaginable for Brandy, when on the morning of December 30th, 2006, while driving her 2007 Land Rover on the 405 freeway in LA, Brandy struck a Toyota being driven by 38-year-old Abutif Abudahaj, who had her children in the back seat. Law enforcement officials reported that Brandy was going 65 miles per hour and did not notice that the vehicles ahead of her had slowed down considerably. Her vehicle then collided with the rear of Abutif's vehicle, causing Abutif to strike the vehicle in front of her before sliding sideways and hitting the center divider. The vehicle then flipped into oncoming traffic on the other side, where it was then struck by yet another vehicle before it came to a rest. The driver, who was behind Brandy, was able to stop his car without hitting anyone, and he got out to console Brandy, who was uninjured but had gotten out of her vehicle and was hysterical and disoriented. screaming about how it was all her fault. The man said she didn't stop. She kept saying that she hit the lady. Brandy walked in front of traffic, was crossing lanes of speeding cars, then she did it again. People were honking at her to get out of the road. She was obviously disoriented and highly upset. The man claims that he tried to calm Brandy down and advised her to stop admitting guilt. He attempted to console her by repeatedly saying it was an accident, it was just an accident. The man went over to check on Awatef, but he couldn't find a pulse. The woman would be rushed to the LA Providence Holy Cross Medical Center, where she unfortunately succumbed to her injuries the next day. This entire situation devastated Brandy, and the media swarmed in on Brandy after the California Highway Patrol released a press statement recommending that Brandy be charged with misdemeanor vehicular manslaughter, though no arrest would be made, while the accident itself remained under investigation for close to a year. A source from the California Highway Patrol would eventually report that Awatef had actually struck the car in front of her first, then slammed on her brakes before Brandy made contact. The sudden stop caused Brandy to hit her car, and toxicology reports showed that Awatef had slight traces of in her system at the time of the crash. In the end, the investigation yielded insufficient evidence from which a jury could find Brandy guilty of vehicular manslaughter beyond a reasonable doubt. Therefore, she was never charged. But this was an unfortunate traffic accident where someone lost their life and others were hurt. Oftentimes when this happens, the person with the most coins is the person that pays. Therefore, several civil lawsuits were filed against Brandy by members of Awatef's family, as well as other occupants of additional vehicles involved, all of which were later settled out of court. But the legal process was a lengthy one, and it resulted in her not being able to return for the second season of America's Got Talent, with her spot being replaced by Sharon Osbourne. But this was the least of Brandy's woes. Her public image had taken many hits over the past few years, but this right here was the lowest point for Brandy. She dealt with survivor's guilt, and the media swarm with everyone blaming her only intensified her disparaging thoughts. She went into a deep depression, not leaving her house for 3 months. And when she did step out to attend a friend's birthday party in April of 2007, paparazzi showed up and snapped pictures of her smiling and appearing to be having a good time, which greatly offended Awatef's husband. Because how dare Brandy have a good day when he's living the worst nightmare of he and his kids' lives?
She continues to live life with really negative results on her. So it's been very difficult on him. Thanksgiving just passed, and he spent Thanksgiving all alone. And Brandy is obviously doing what Brandy is doing, which isn't grieving. She has nothing to grieve over. We've seen video of her partying and the whole bit, and she's living life. But life has become extremely difficult on this gentleman. So not only did she ruin, she obviously took the life of his wife. She's in a sense taken his life. The boys no longer have the mother. This is a very sad situation, and unfortunately, to date, we don't see Brandy stepping up to the plate, accepting her responsibility. You know, it's as if though nothing has occurred here.
It seemed as though everyone on the outside were hell-bent on making sure that Brandy suffered. Even her own gardener ended up suing her over unpaid landscaping. He said, "Hey man, I know you dealing with a lot, but I done trimmed these hedges, done pressure washed this concrete, I done made a flower bed out in the yard, but you ain't paid me, man, what's up?" And as much as her family tried to be there for her, they were busy putting out another fire surrounding her brother Ray J, whose intimate tape with Brandy's best friend Kim Kardashian had made its way to the public and was the talk of the entertainment industry at the time. It's probably the most infamous tape of the 2000s, as it in many ways launched the career of Kim Kardashian. But as for Brandy, the mere fact that she was involved in an incident that took the life of a mother was almost too much to live with, and Brandy later admitted that she contemplated taking her own life. But it was her love for her daughter that kept her here, as she didn't want another baby to have to go on without their mother. Brandy later stated that the whole experience did completely change my life, and I can say that I think I'm a better person from it. You know, I still don't understand all of it and why all of it happened, but I definitely have a heart, and my heart goes out to everyone involved. I pray about it every single day, and that's all I can really say on the subject. In late 2007, Brandy would return to music as it became very therapeutic, falling in love with singing again, and it eventually brought her out of her depression. She would appear on the Meet the Browns soundtrack, performing the song Dig This, and also appeared as a guest vocalist on a number of songs like Something About You by Carl Thomas and Quickly by John Legend, which was an underrated gem, by the way. It was written by a up-and-coming artist at the time, Frank Ocean, and it should have been a single, man. John and Brandy's vocals complement one another perfectly. But Brandy's music would take a shift into a more eclectic range of sounds moving forward, starting with a dip into country music, with a guest feature on Babyface's cover of Dave Loggins' hit, Please Come to Boston. Although she would ultimately end up in the dance pop genre, with this new material that she had been recording. In April of 2008, she was signed with Epic Records, and at some point began being managed by Jay-Z's Roc Nation. She was also reunited with her longtime collaborator, Rodney Jerkins, aka Darkchild, who was responsible for her biggest hits from her second and third albums. But back in 2003, after creative differences, the two would part ways for the fourth album, which largely ended up being produced by Timbaland. But Brandy and Darkchild always made magic in the studio, and the very first song they recorded together would go on to be the first single, and it was called Right Here, Departed, which opens with Brandy singing the hook a cappella before Rodney says, Beat Rocker, Darkchild, we back, signifying the dynamic duo's triumphant, collaborative return. Penned by Evan Bogart and his team of writers, this track chronicles a woman's talks about mutual support with her loved ones. Lyrics from the pre-chorus read, and when you feel alone, I'ma be your home. When others come and go, you know I got you. And its message resonated with listeners. Though the words departed and lines like your life is going too fast, scared you might crash were a bold choice given Brandy's previous situation, she embraced them fully and stated that the car accident is what served as inspiration for this song. She said to know that you got somebody by your side who is going to always be there for you, that comforts you in a way, and that kind of gives you an extra confidence about yourself. And that's what I love about it. It's the first message, and then you get into the beat and the whole musical part of it. I think everyone's going to be able to relate to that. It's universal. Evan Bogart called it an honor to have Brandy record one of his team songs. He said, I think it's definitely a great comeback song for her, stylistically and conceptually. And boy, was it a comeback. With its club banging beat, this jam shot straight to number 1 on the dance charts and number 22 on both the R&B and pop charts. It scored the top 40, not only on the Hot 100, but also in countries like Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Denmark, Germany, and in Sweden, where it outsold all the singles from her previous album. This song was equally popular in the clubs and would be given 5011 dance remixes from different DJs and producers worldwide, as well as 2 remixes that featured a rapper on the intro, one being Sean Kingston and the other mix featuring The Game. The song's music video was directed by Lil X, who had done many of Ray J's videos, but this was actually his first one for Brandy. It was filmed in LA using green screen for some scenes, while others were filmed in the street. It features both Ray J and Darkchild himself, as well as actor Corey Hardrick, but in this visual, it's Brandy who's the dearly departed, and her spirit is visiting her loved ones. For a brief moment, the world around them disappears, as her spirit reassures them that though I'm departed, I'm right here with you, always. Her loved ones later awake from their dreamlike state of mind, comforted in knowing that Brandy's spirit is guiding them. The setting for these scenes were inspired by the film I Am Legend, where Will Smith's character lives in a city without people. Now, the concept of the video was chosen out of several different ideas, and Brandy praised the realness that Lil X came with in bringing his vision for the video to life. The behind-the-scenes making of the video and its official release would be featured on BET's Access Granted in early September, and by the end of October, it had reached number 1 on BET's 106 & Park Countdown. The sound for Right Here Departed would set the tone for the rest of the album, which would become more dance pop themed, marking a departure from the hip-hop themed Aphrodisiac album and the R&B themes associated with the rest of her previous catalog. Rodney Jerkins, who had taken over as main producer for this new album, would say it's definitely a big pop sounding album, international sounding, but she hits it a little on the countryside. Vocally, she does a lot of little country twangs with her voice. Now, we kid around and we be joking that the next album is gonna be country. We both gonna step out and do some country music, but we're kind of tapping into it to show that you can mix that sound with urban and R&B and hip hop. It's just music, and good music lives. Now, Brandy was turning 30 in a matter of months and wanted the album to reflect her maturity and where she was at in her life as the perfectly imperfect superstar. She titled the album Human and said that I want to make it for everybody, not just urban, but every race, every color, every creed, whatever. She said, I just want to make a universal album, and that's what we did, and we accomplished that, and I'm really excited about it.
And it's going to let them know you can make it on the other side.
Because I made it on the other side. You know, it was hard, but I made it on the other side. It's like you just have to put your best foot forward and just do what you love to do, and that's what I'm doing. I'm able to remember what I've gone through and then just pour it all out in song. And when I hear myself sing back, it just sounds like I've struggled, I've been in certain situations. I've just discovered a different voice within myself. You can feel all of me when you hear me sing on this album.
With the album near completion, they planned for a release date of November 11th and scheduled to appear on Oprah the day before to promote it. But last-minute additions from producer Timbaland meant that Brandy would extend the release date by almost a month. She was ecstatic to work with Tim again for this project. Among the tracks he produced for her was a knockout called Who's the Loser Now, co-written and demoed by James Fauntleroy. Brandy recorded her own version, which sounded amazing and fit perfectly on this album. Now all she needed were Tim's vocals. However, at this time, many of the demos being done for Tim's parts were actually recorded by songwriter Ezekiel Lewis. As a matter of fact, singer Carrie Hilson recently revealed that Omarion's hit song Icebox actually kept Ezekiel's demo vocals on the official release, even though Timbaland later appeared in the music video lip-syncing to them.
Everything that you hear, I'm so cold, I'm so cold, I'm so cold. I'm so cold, I'm so cold. That is actually not Timbaland's voice. I coached Ezekiel Lewis, one of the co-writers, on sounding exactly like Tim. But I will say it was done with the intention that Timbaland would record it. We were like, so yeah, this is the part that you'll sing. You know, this section right here, that's you. Obviously, it sounds just like you. And he's like, yeah, it sounds just like me. I'm not going to do it. And we were like, we kind of want it to be authentic. Like, we think you want to just do it now? He's like, sounds just like you. I think he was eating a banana or something. He's like, it sounds just like me. It sounds just like me. There's no need for that. It's not him.
As long as Tim was the main producer, he was going to get his credit and just dues regardless. But when it came to Brandy's music, she wasn't having that. It was either all Tim or no Tim, and as a result, none of the songs that he produced made the cut, despite the fact that the album was literally put on hold for the inclusion of those songs. Brandy later told Wrap Up TV, it's hard to get Timbaland's voice on records, and we really wanted his voice to be on the records. It's not that they're not good, it's just that we couldn't work it out where he could actually be on the album. Brandy also said, I think I'm going to work with Timbaland again, heavy, for my next album. He is one of the most talented producers I think to ever exist. I would love to do an album with him and Rodney together, like they actually executive produce it together. That would be a dream of mine. A dream that, unfortunately, as of 2025, has yet to transpire. However, some people who did contribute to this album would later find breakout success in their own careers as artists. Now, on December 9th, 2008, Human would get its official release in North America a few days after its release in France, Australia, and the UK, marking her return to music after 4 years, and her longtime fans would be in for a surprise with the shift in musical direction for this project. Human opens with an intro consisting of Brandy defining what being human means to her, which ushers in the next track called The Definition. an up-tempo joint that depicts Brandy rhapsodizing about how her man is the epitome of true love. The lyrics themselves go far beyond what I can describe, but the Boston Globe emphasized it as the most essential track on the album. This song, along with a few others, featured contributions from songwriter and producer LaShawn Daniels, who was like Darkchild's right-hand man. Brandy and LaShawn had collaborated before and would continue to collaborate together for years, up until his untimely death in 2019. Now, ironically, by that time, he and Brandy were in the middle of completing Brandy's 7th album when he passed. But I digress. Track 3, Warm It Up With Love, is another Darkchild production that was created around a piano sample, a beat that had a nice blend of urban pop and late 2000s club music. When speaking about the song, Brandy said, "I'm talking about how the whole world is freezing, but we just need to warm the world up with love." The song and its beautiful message was a highlight by critics, with Newsday noting it as the guiding principle on the album. This track could have easily been the 2nd or 3rd single, but alas, it was a missed opportunity. But this track got listeners amped for the next track, Right Here Departed, the smash hit from the album. Now track 5 was called Piano Man. Brandy said that the song is where I go to this piano man and ask him to play a song of love, play a song about heartache, so we can have the whole world singing tonight. Now, it becomes very apparent that the piano plays an integral part of this entire album, appearing on most of the songs, so it was only fitting to have one of the songs be dedicated to the piano player. And it was a nice little bop, I like it. Now track 6 was an interlude where Brandy's on the phone with her long distance boyfriend and she's expressing to him that the distance between them is starting to wear on her. The boyfriend tries to reassure her, but then the call drops, which segues into the next track called Long Distance, co-written and demoed by none other than Bruno Mars, who at the time had written and produced for other artists, but hadn't broken out into the mainstream as an artist himself just yet. Long Distance detailed Brandy's emotional state towards an ongoing long-distance relationship, which leaves her with depressive thoughts. The lyrics went as follows: "With you is where I'd rather be, but we're stuck where we are, and it's so hard, so hard. This long distance is killing me." This song was a piano-led power ballad and was cited as a lover's anthem for long-distance couples, as many listeners could relate to this feeling. Brandy recalled playing the song for one woman in particular whose husband was deployed at the time, and the woman broke down singing the song's praises and just knew it would touch the hearts of so many people. Although Brandy personally dedicated this song to her daughter Sarah, who was just starting elementary school, but had to be away from Brandy while Brandy was out on the road doing promo for the album. Long Distance had premiered 2 months ahead of the album, released as the official 2nd single. And much like the first single, it shot straight to number 1 on the Dance Club Songs chart. And it also managed to peak at number 13 on the US Adult R&B chart. Imagine that for a pop ballad. Okay then. A series of dance mixes would also accompany its release. However, the single was only released in the States, which greatly limited its full potential. The label wanted a ballad for the 2nd single to balance out the bass-heavy high energy from the first, and showcase Brandy's vocal chops, proving that she hadn't skipped a beat during her time away. Yet critics were mixed in their reviews. While some compared the song to the likes of Whitney Houston or Beyonce's hit at the time, If I Were a Boy, even describing Long Distance as one of the warmer, more organic songs from the album, and felt it was sure to be a massive hit, others found the song to be cliche and somewhat compared the theme to one that could have been sung by the likes of Phil Collins on the soundtrack to an 80s film. Either way, the song performed moderately, and Brandy performed the song a number of times on shows like The Tyra Banks Show, The Today Show, BET, and CBS. The single would get a music video as well, which was directed by Chris Robinson, who had previously worked with Brandy on her music video for Full Moon 6 years earlier. Now this video was filmed at the Park Plaza Hotel in downtown LA for a cinematic effect. The behind the scenes footage would not premiere on Access Granted, but it would appear on Wrap Up TV. The actual video features scenes of Brandy sitting alone in her dressing room getting ready for a show, but thinking about her boyfriend. This part of the video is cut with scenes of her and her boyfriend together. As she sings her set, her boyfriend appears over by the bar. She's singing to him that she can't be home right now, but will be home soon. Then her boyfriend comes over to her and touches her on the face, only for the camera to zoom out to show that it's symbolic and something that Brandy is watching in a picture frame in her room, which then catches on fire. which puts some viewers in the mind of her previous video where she's with her lover, but also not with her lover. The visuals from this era really harped on the idea of being somewhere in spirit, rather than actually in one's presence. I noticed that. At one point, Bruno Mars appears as a piano man, and ironically enough, the latter scenes of Brandy crying in the rain drew comparisons to Ray J's One Wish video. But the finished music video for Long Distance would premiere on the entertainment blog PerezHilton.com a week before the album's release, and the video was described as Whitney back in the 90s, Babyface era. It later debuted on BET's 106 & Park Countdown on December 22nd of 2008, and it had peaked at the top position by January 14th of 2009, where it held the #1 spot for an entire week. All in all, while it didn't get nearly the amount of push as Right Here departed, it wasn't bad for a second single. But promotion from the label soon tapered off after this, but more on that in a little bit. Track 8, Camouflage, man. Let me just start by saying that the drum patterns on this joint is infectious, much like the third song from her album. I could just listen to the beat alone. Produced by Darkchild, it was one out of 2 songs that were written by songwriter Claude Kelly. The song's message is about Brandy standing firm in who she is as she sings, "These flaws I've got, they're a part of who I am. And I'm so done trying to be everything you want because you ain't worth it if I've got to camouflage for love." Essentially, it was her version of Mary J. Blige's "Take Me As I Am or Have Nothing at All." And she wasn't just singing those words to a hypothetical lover, but to the world, as this is who she is, perfectly imperfect, and you either take it or leave it. Okay then, okay then. Track 9, Torn Down, has a replay value of infinity. Produced by Mafia, the same production duo behind Fantasia's When I See You, and the same duo that produced that amazing joint that Brandy did with John Legend. Torn Down is an amazing track about the sanctity of true love, how when it's real and authentic, it can't be shaken or torn down, and that's a love I aspire to have one day. The instrumentation on this one was just breathtaking, from the fusion of hip-hop and country music elements over static synths and an acoustic guitar and hand claps, and all the ingredients came together beautifully. This was definitely single-worthy, and I've often tried to picture what a music video would look like to this song. Definitely something out in nature with a scenic background. Track 10 was the title track, Human. Brandy said, "I wrote the title track to the album, and basically what that song is about is forgiveness. Mistakes are going to be made, we're all going to make them. One of the lines in the song is, I'm only human, I might just tell a lie. I'm only human, I'm an angel in disguise," which is an ode to her Never Say Never album, if you know, you know. Brandy would receive production credits on this song, along with the help from producer Toby Gad and Canadian singer Estero. Human was described as a silky R&B anthem, and the ballad is somewhat therapeutic, and this is one of the tracks that helped my then teenage self understand that celebrities are really glorified humans. In the verses, Brandy sings, "I cry when you cry, I hurt when you hurt, I make mistakes, and I can't turn back time." And in so many words, this was her way of saying, don't let the glitz and glam fool you into thinking that I don't deal with everyday feelings and emotions. In many ways, this song was a cry for forgiveness and grace, given her situation, and the media trying to tarnish her image as a result. Also, it served as a way for her to connect with so many of her fans, as they can relate to living in a society that praises production and perfection and chastises any vulnerability, or chastises what could be perceived as damaged. Track 11, Shattered Heart, to me is the album's hidden gem, as not many people talk about it. But that beat is fire. It's just a different sound, unlike anything else on the album. From the stare-stuttering beats of what are reminiscent of a Timbaland's production, to the vocal oohing in the chorus that's almost chilling, but in a good way. While it incorporates elements of Middle Eastern music, visually I picture a castle, and lyrically Brandy is like Fiona, who has locked her love away in a jar, and many have embarked on a quest to unlock this love. To quote the verse, "They tried to break through the gate but didn't have a code. But when I looked in your eyes, I felt a glitch. So I present to you my most precious gift. There's just one command, that whatever you do, do not shatter her heart. Life is hard enough. Trusting a muff is hard enough. Don't give her a reason to distrust you. The instructions were clear and simple enough." But like clockwork, track 12, True, finds Brandy questioning her lover and questioning if the allegations are true that she's not the only woman in his life. She loves him very deeply, but she's gotta know, and if he can't tell her the truth, then his love was never real to begin with. Produced by Red One and co-written by himself and Claude Kelly, the song was initially written from the man's perspective and intended for Michael Jackson, as these two happened to be working with him on a number of other songs. But by the time they completed the demo, the window of opportunity to present this song to him had already closed. According to Claude Kelly, Epic Records A&R manager Brandon Creed heard the song and was like, "This would be great for Brandy." So Brandy went in and we changed the key, changed a couple of words so it made sense for her and made it honest to her point of view. Perfect vocals, perfect emotions, she brought the song to life very easily. Claude declared Brandy's version as being one of his favorite songs. Critics were equally impressed with the song, as were the fans. The song managed to even chart at number 18 on the Billboard Bubbling Under R&B Hip Hop Singles charts, based on downloads alone. So in other words, it reached number 118 on the R&B Hip Hop Singles chart. Okay then. But track 13, acapella. Hold it up. Okay, this song is my personal favorite song on the album, which is actually ironic because it's almost entirely sang in acapella, save for an electric guitar in the background. But Brandy provides a polyphonic cyber chorus with multiple tracks of her own voice while humming the bass line and providing the rhythm. They call Brandy the vocal Bible for a reason, y'all, and this entire track was almost ethereal, and every ear that hears it falls in love with it. I kid you not. It is one of my favorite acapella songs in all the history of music, really. Produced by Sounds, the song's lyrics speak to how Brandy has accomplished all these great things, yet something is missing. And she's to the point where she feels like she's on the wrong journey, going in circles but not really getting anywhere. She even asks if someone can help her find the missing part of herself. And when I tell y'all, I have never related to a single song more in my entire life on this planet than this joint right here. I ain't even trying to hype it up. I ain't even trying to sugarcoat. I spent many a night crying to this very song while it was on repeat. I played the song for one of my male relatives after his release from prison, and even he cried. And I really believe that the lyrics spoke to how Brandy truly felt at this point in her life. Now, though the track was just an album cut, it did gain some notoriety, especially in 2010 on the second season of the singing competition show called The Sing-Off. An all-male vocal group called Committed interpolated the song by incorporating pieces of it within their cover of the One Republic and Timbaland song called Apologize. The group were met with unanimous praise by the show's judges and went on to win the contest. Over the years, numerous artists have actually spoken out about Brandy's song Acapella and its impact on them as singers, and despite how the song never became a hit single, it's still one that is well known to many vocalists. Back in 2020, singers Tori Kelly and Her did their own rendition of the song on a live stream, along with covers of Broken Hearted and Right Here Departed. In 2023, singer Tiffany Red, when interviewed on the R&B Money podcast, named Acapella as one of her 5 favorite R&B songs of all time. And in 2024, singer Normani cited Acapella as an inspiration for the song Insomnia off her long-awaited debut album called Dopamine. Normani said, "There's a record called Acapella, Something Is Missing by Brandy from 2008, and I went in with the inspiration with producers Stargate. I was like, I want to capture this feeling, and that's exactly what we did." In saying this, Normani introduced a ton of new listeners to this song, and they loved it the same way we all did. Track 14, First in Love, co-written by Frank Ocean and co-produced by Hit Boy, was a light-hearted jingle that spoke of her euphoria with a newfound love at first sight, and how its glow is all over her. So much so that even her family is asking where she met this man. And she proudly sings, "I met him on a corner and first in love." Now for the song's hook, the beat amps up as the drums kick in to give the song a more lively feel. This could have been featured on any teenage flick at the time, and it almost got a singles release actually. For a while the label was torn between this song and Piano Man as the potential third single, though in the end neither release actually panned out. But the official instrumental and acapella for First in Love found its way online for the fans to enjoy years back. though this only led to everyone asking for where all the rest of the instrumentals to all the other songs on the album. But anyway, First in Love would be sampled by Billy Crawford for his cover of Michael Jackson's Human Nature the following year. I think he just sampled the hand claps, but hey, a sample is a sample. Now, the closing track on the standard edition of Human was the song Fall, which echoes the sentiments of Right Here Departed, where she's telling her lover to just fall and I'll catch you. Everything's gonna be alright if we fall in love together. Now, on this track, there's a beautiful intertwining of the piano and Brandy's vocals over a hip-hop beat, but with pop influences. Now, the song was co-produced by LaShawn Daniels and co-written by singer Natasha Bedingfield, which I can hear her influence all throughout this track, okay? Though she and Brandy were said to have had a tough time recording it, as it was reported that during their Atlanta studio session that Chris Brown and his entourage broke into their studio being loud, disruptive, and playing his music and horsing around. The women were unable to complete their session, so they picked back up in LA, and I'm glad that they were eventually able to complete it. And I can easily hear this song being played on the radio at the time. It actually could have been a big hit if the lyrical content wasn't so similar to the first single, and I believe that that's why it wasn't considered to be a single. Now, at the end of this track, Brandy sings the hook from Camouflage, a cappella, driving the point home about her being human and perfectly imperfect, which I felt was a nice way to close out the album. Now, let's get into some of these bonus tracks, as Brandy would release a few different editions of Human in different locations. Now, the North America's iTunes edition, along with several of the international digital editions, listed track 16 as Gonna Find My Love, which was produced by Toby Gad. On this track, Brandy is hopeful and determined to find her love no matter what. The beat and vocal layering on this one is amazing. It not only should have been on the standard edition of the album, but I'd argue that it should have been a single too. But he who does find this track finds a great thing. Among its many treasures also lies a rap portion performed by Brandy, and her flow drew instant comparisons to the rapper Eve on this one, which is quite ironic in retrospect because just 13 years later, Brandy's character would face Eve's character in a battle rap, where they're both showing off their impeccable cadences. B-Rocker can spit, that's for sure, but this bonus track was all too hidden for the world to catch on just yet. Now, track 17 was listed as Lock It, Locked in Love, which spoke about being in love with somebody who decides to abruptly leave. Meanwhile, Brandy is still very much in love with the man, and he's the only one with the key. So she's like, help me get free. If you're gonna walk away, don't leave me here with all these feelings. Brandy later stated that this was her favorite song from this era. And the theme behind the song Locked was actually similar to another song she did called Keyed, which unfortunately was left off the project, but that would have been great on the album as well. Several other editions had various remixes of both of the album's singles, as well as an a cappella version of Long Distance, and video footage from the Right Here Departed music video. Also, if anybody remembers Circuit City, they did an exclusive edition which featured one of the remixes to Right Here Departed. Fun fact, Human by Brandy was actually one of the last albums to see a Circuit City exclusive release date, as the franchise officially went defunct exactly 3 months after the album's release. Like 3 months to the day. Damn. Oddly enough, Circuit City wasn't the only thing shutting down. Brandy's days at her new record company were numbered. While Right Here Departed became Brandy's highest charting single in years, the album Human peaked at number 15 on the Billboard 200, selling only 73,000 in its first week, which was her lowest opening sales for any album by that point. And it was a considerable drop from her last album, Aphrodisiac, which had opened to 131,000 copies. Though this album would go on to become her 5th consecutive top 5 album on the R&B hip hop albums chart. It peaked at number 5, but elsewhere Human widely underperformed, and this happened for various reasons. For starters, it didn't help that a few of the songs like Torn Down, The Definition, and even First in Love had all leaked before the album's official release in their original demo versions, and that kills anticipation when the finished product comes out. I had gotten so used to listening to the original version of Torn Down that I actually prefer it to the album version. It's slower and lower pitch with a few different lyrics, but anyway, I digress. Another contributing factor to the low sales was due to the musical landscape at the time. Not only were people buying albums less and less, but 2008 to 2009 was when R&B and hip-hop was becoming more pop-driven, with more and more artists crossing over. So you would think that Brandy would prosper, moving with the tide and all. But the pop market was becoming heavily saturated, so having a strong fan base was key in helping artists stand out amongst the rest. And while Brandy sang these songs down, she already had an extensive catalog with a fan base that had grown to love her established sound. And after 15 years in the game, trying to switch it up, it just didn't connect with many listeners outside of her hardcore ride or die fans. As for the radio, I'm sure if another artist who was already knee deep in the pop sector brought those same songs, the industry would have ate it up, because there was some damn good music on this album. Many critics praised the overall depthness and transparency, calling Human her most sincere project yet. However, others felt that the lyrics were all too cliche and full of platitudes, the music sounding like much of what had already been covered on pop radio many a time. The main takeaway was that she was still trying to find her footing in a new genre amidst her peers who were outshining her. This was very evident when Grammy season rolled around, and for the first time in her musical career, Brandy wouldn't be nominated in any category. In fact, it was her only era where she wasn't nominated for anything at any award show. The album itself was largely ignored by the general public, and in interviews it seemed as though all the hosts wanted to talk about was either the fatal car wreck that she was trying to move on from, or the drama surrounding her brother.
I know that you really could relate to this mother because you're a mother yourself.
Yes, I am.
She left behind 2 children, a husband, and parents. If you could talk to them, what would you say to them?
I think that's a private matter, and I've written in my journal about it, everything that I would want to say, and just not just to that family, but everybody involved. And I just would rather keep that to myself, if you don't mind.
Oh, of course I don't mind. I completely understand.
Thank you.
And I could see it's tough for you to talk about that. What have you learned? How did you come out of this?
Like I said before, it's just diving back into my music and just my family and friends being there to support me, and just understanding that moving on, I have to have everything in my life mean something. I was embarrassed because I didn't want my brother's business out there like that, obviously. And Kim was a very, very good friend of mine, so I didn't want that to be exposed. But in his defense, he was with Kim. That was his girlfriend. They were very much in love, so they were probably just being young and trying to have some fun. And the tape got out. It got out. Yeah.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
No.
Now, before I mentioned that Brandy was slated to go on the Oprah show the day prior to the original album release date, but then the album was pushed back and that was the last time anyone had heard of it. Well, in an interview with That Grape Juice months later, she was asked to clear the air on what happened, and she basically expressed that it wasn't going to even be about the album. Like, Oprah was going to come there, and she basically expressed that it was about to be some drama. It wasn't even going to be about the music. She said with the Oprah situation, the show wasn't going to be about the album. I didn't want to put myself in a situation where it wouldn't have been good for me in terms of my personal life. I mean, I've touched on some things in my personal life, but to go into heavy detail about certain things, I don't think would have been the best thing for me. So that's why my fans didn't see me on Oprah. I would love to do Oprah in the future though. I love her show. I've been there a couple times. I want to go on there and sing and share what music is to me as well as how much it means to me. And it wasn't going to be a show about that this most recent time. And I think this was a smart move. I mean, she really tried to focus on the music, and it's just like, dang, man, what? Now, Brandy would eventually make her way onto the Oprah show to talk about that car accident, though it would take another 6 years for her to be ready for all that. But as for Human and its music, man, it wasn't being shown no love, in my opinion. During a promo tour ahead of the album, Brandy had stopped by BET's 106 & Park to perform a 5-piece mini concert special called Brandy, Just Human. Now, it featured the first 2 singles from the album, in addition to What About Us, Full Moon, and Almost Doesn't Count from her previous albums. Though the audience got live with it, this felt more like an ode to her previous music. Though after seeing such positive reactions, she would embark on the official Human World Tour in February 2009, as many European countries were just now getting their copies of this new album. However, out of all 16 songs on her setlist, she would only perform 3 from this new album, and while fans were ecstatic just to be in the presence of the vocal Bible herself, it seemed more like people were just happy that Brandy was back out on the road and singing again, and play them old joints from the previous albums we loved a decade ago. But it also didn't appear that Brandy herself was even all that interested in promoting this new body of work. While on tour, she sat down with British magazine Blues and Soul and basically confirmed that she was already over this new album and its era. In response to the album sales pretty much falling completely off the radar just weeks after its release, she said, "Yes, I'm a little disappointed about that. But at the same time, I'm also pleased that Sony has given me another chance to do another project that I feel they're totally behind. In hindsight, I do feel the last album, Human, was a little political. So a lot of changes have been made since Human, and hopefully they're changes for the better, because having all the deep stuff off my chest, I'm now able to really tap into the fun part of music again. And the producers I'm working with for this next album, Stargate, Neo, Tricky, and The Dream, Brian Kennedy, are amazing. It captures everything, the love, the sexiness, the club vibe, and it's exactly the type of album that I need to be making right now." However, once the tour wrapped in late spring of 2009, it was reported that Brandy had been let go from Epic Records, and that one of the A&Rs, Brandon Creed, had been making calls to see if other labels would be interested in signing her. See, what had happened was, Epic Records had just appointed Amanda Ghost as their new president, and Amanda had a penchant for profanity and a reputation for unpredictable, sometimes violent outbursts, with some of Epic Records' own staff describing her as flighty, abrasive, arrogant, and unpredictable. Well, Amanda was being represented by Roc Nation at that time, as she was a notable songwriter who had written hits for Beyonce, Shakira, etc. As a matter of fact, her management was a major factor in Jay-Z deciding to sign a distribution deal with Sony for the release of his upcoming mega successful album, The Blueprint 3. Well, at this particular time, it was reported that Brandy's management agreement with Roc Nation had been experiencing some creative differences, causing the relationship to dissolve. Roc Nation's publicist, Jana Fleischman, would confirm in an email that Roc Nation no longer reps Brandy. And according to sources like AOL's Black Voices and That Grape Juice, their sources claim that Brandy's business relationship with Roc Nation is actually what kept Epic Records from dropping her months ago after the piss poor performance of Human, and that since the singer is no longer repped by the firm, the label didn't see the benefit in giving her another album. The source said Brandy was signed to Epic when Charlie Walk was president of the label, but now that Amanda is president, she's the one who decided to drop Brandy on her head. But a rep for Brandy would respond by denying that she was ever dropped from the label, saying they have not dropped her. We are actually trying to get a release from them, so we the ones waiting. The rep also added that Brandy and Roc Nation had parted amicably. Now, Amanda declined to comment on Brandy's departure, which shows what little she thought of her. But it was Amanda who ended up on the chopping block just 1 year later, when she was asked to go ahead and step down from her position for everyone's benefit at that point. Yeah, go ahead and clock out. Either way, it was done, okay? Brandy was shopping for a new deal yet again, and all them songs that she had been working on for that new album with those new producers for that second album on Epic Records would instead be sent to other artists, like the song she recorded called Stupid in Love, which would end up on Rihanna's Rated R album that year. But Brandy's version would be leaked online, and it was just as good, if not better. Also, one of her songs called Louboutins would be given to song stealer Jennifer Lopez, who released it as a single, and when you go listen to that song, you can hear Brandy's influence all over that record. Tricky Stewart said that he and The Dream had created that song for Brandy. Man, that should have been hers, man. But anyways, around this time, Brandy did attempt another acting venture. She shot a pilot for an ABC show called This Little Piggy that centered around 2 grown siblings having to move in with their older brother, and Brandy's role was to be the wife of the youngest sibling. However, ABC would pass on the concept after just 1 episode, although NBC later picked it up and decided to turn it into a TV movie, but with an entirely new cast. While Brandy's singing and acting careers might have hit a bit of a rough patch at this time, a brand new door would open for her, one that was unexpected.
I'm back and forth like airplanes to airports. You up and down like you running the court. We got some sort of misunderstanding. I ain't pretending to be no nanny. I'm a hot mommy making that rock money. I throw them out, they come back to me like a boomerang. They all the same, just got different names, playing the same games. Going in circles like orbits, I can't afford it. I don't deserve it, I'm worth more than this. This is a forfeit. Yeah, I messed up a little bit on that verse, but it's all good.
In July 2009, Brandy had uploaded a 2-minute teaser of an unreleased song called It's My Party. In the video, she's seen rapping 3 verses that she threw together just for fun, and while it did get some attention online, longtime producer Timbaland saw potential in her delivery and reached out to have her featured on his upcoming compilation album called Shock Value 2, and she would gladly accept the invitation. This time as a rapper, donning the name Brand New, her alter ego. She would appear on 2 songs from the project, Meet in the Middle, which is my favorite, and Symphony, and her delivery was on point, like she had been rapping her whole life. Of course, she sang a few ad-libs while she was at it. It was kinda cool because alter egos were the hot new thing amongst many artists at the time, like Sasha Fierce for Beyonce, and Super C for Sierra. And it served as a creative outlet for Brandy too. She later spoke on the collaborative effort with Timbaland, saying, "What I'm doing on the album is a little bit different than what everybody knows me for. It was a great experience. I got a chance to be another part of myself." Now, what many people didn't know was that Brand New was actually the name of her imprint that she founded back in '93. So if you read the small print on the physical copy of some of her older releases, you'll see where it says Brandy on behalf of Brand New Incorporated. However, Brand New the rapper wouldn't bless fans with a full-length project, unfortunately. Instead, Brand New would be someone who Brandy would reserve for special occasions. Meanwhile, at the top of 2010, she and 80 other artists would come together for We Are the World 25 for Haiti, a charity single to benefit the victims of Haiti's magnitude 7.0 earthquake that devastated much of the country and took the lives of thousands. Brandy was no stranger to collaborations for change. Around the release of her Aphrodisiac album, she had appeared with many other artists on the Wake Up Everybody single to coincide with the 2004 presidential election. But again, I digress. In April of 2010, Brandy and her brother Ray J debuted their reality series called Brandy and Ray J, A Family Business, along with their parents on VH1. The show gave viewers insight into the backstage lives of both siblings, while taking on larger roles in their family's management and production company, R&B Productions, R representing Ray J and B representing Brandy. Executive produced by their entire family, the show ran for 2 seasons, and while fans got to see the not-so-perfect sides of being a superstar, they also got to see firsthand Brandy express just how much she despised her last album, Human, and discouraged Ray J from working with Rodney Jerkins unless he gives better material than he did on Human.
What was the next album after that? Human. Human was an interesting album because it was more pop driven than anything, and I don't think that was a good decision. But our recent work that we've done together, which was my last album called Human, was not successful. And since then, our relationship has been kind of shaky. Rodney Jerkins better give you his best work because he did not give me his best work on Human. Some of the things that has happened between me and Rodney has been personal. The last album, Human, how he didn't put his all into that album, that was a personal thing for me. So I just want to make sure if he's not going to give you the best work and the best album, there's no need to do a deal with him. I'm just saying to you, I don't want Rodney to do the same thing that he did to me to Ray, which was go in purposefully and not do his best, because I kind of feel like on my last album, I didn't get that.
How you feel like that?
It wasn't as like creative and forthcoming as the other projects.
Later in the series, she admitted that the album's underperformance resulted in another argument between her and Rodney, who had distanced himself from Human following its official release, declaring his dissatisfaction with the involvement of the other producers on the album. Now, fans who adored this album were shocked at Brandy's revelation, but her disdain for the project didn't stop there. She would go on several interviews elaborating that she hated Human with a passion. She told Out magazine, "To hell with that album. Where I felt creatively it could have gone, and the space I was in creatively, I needed everyone around me to be in that same space. It would have been a different album, but with the same inspiration and same blessing for other people. It would have been hotter music and a hotter look," she told LA Times. She told LA Times, "It was lacking my belief in it. It lacked my vision. Pretty much, bottom line, if you don't believe in something, it's not going to go." So do I believe that Human was as creative as Never Say Never and Full Moon? No, I do not. You definitely want to put out something that's like that. I felt at the same time I could have had much better songs and a much better setup. She then told Vibe magazine that Human was too pop and that her team was the one that was pushing for a crossover album. She stated, "I was listening to the voice of my team more so than what was going on inside of me. With Human, I felt like I wanted to do more R&B music, and that's not what we decided to do on that album." Now, these interviews were a complete 180 to the interview she did promoting just how much the songs were true and heartfelt and how they represented where she was at in her life. An album that was supposed to represent Brandy's healing, one that did bring many of her fans out of some of their toughest battles, became one that she detested, and it threw many of us for a loop to see her flat out disown it. Meanwhile, herself and Ray J were able to revisit the idea of that collaboration album that I talked about that they wanted to put out back in 2006, before life got all crazy. They would throw together a compilation effort called Family's Business, featuring previously unreleased content from the entire cast of their reality show. And though they released 3 promo singles, the album failed to chart and was quickly forgotten. Most fans barely mention it, and I'll admit I never got around to listening to it. So I might do an updated video where I detail that project. I mean, critics such as the Washington Post had declared it an awkward and adorable and really wholesome collection. So it is worth looking into. But yeah, man, Brandy hating Human, man, that messed a lot of us up, because we was like, man, we was the only people like really, supporting it, and a lot of us were like really feeling like the world slept on it, but we were at least happy that Brandy liked it. But to know that she didn't like it, that didn't feel good hearing that. Okay, now in more recent years, Brandy would grow a newfound love and appreciation for the album after having witnessed the profound effect it had on her own daughter, Sarah, once Sarah became an adult. She revealed to True Exclusives in 2024 that at the time of recording Human back in 2008, she was too focused on trying to establish a new sound to really reflect and appreciate the vulnerability and creativity that she and her team put into that project, much less her stellar vocal performance on it. But after her daughter Sarah went through a situation of her own and clung to the album's lyrics and melodies, seeing it be therapeutic for her, Brandy decided to go back and take another listen to it, and she fell in love with it all over again. And I love that for her. Sometimes when we're in the thick of the worst mess of our lives, we look back on that time like, man, everything about that time was bad. But then all it takes is going back over a few photos, maybe a video or a song from that time to remind you that even in the midst of the storm, there were still good times that were had. And these storms did bring about some of the greatest songs in Brandy's discography, whether mainstream media took note of them or not. And in the comments section on her interview with True Exclusives, there were so many of her fans who attested to all the greatness that the underappreciated and misunderstood Human album contained, and how it carried even them through the darkest of times. And it's truly a blessing to be able to give to the world in such a way that soothes others the same way that your creations brought you through the storm. And honestly, that's what it's all about. And fans have been telling her that over the years, but it's another thing to see her daughter go through that and for her herself to fall back in love with it. And I'm just happy that she was able to, make peace with it and come to terms with it. And while that might wrap things up for this video, for this era, to all my Brandy fans, it ain't over yet. Because see, what y'all didn't know was that this is a 2-part series. Oh yeah. We got to get into that next era for Brandy, okay? Because that 211 record isn't talked about enough. So while I've got a few other things coming in the meantime, I want y'all to be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for the 211 documentary. It is coming soon, sooner than you think. But for now, this is Justified by Jury. Y'all know how to hit that like. Y'all know how to hit that subscribe. Y'all know how to hit that notification bell. Go on and do so. If you want to, do so. Let me know in the comments section what your favorite song was from this album. What was your favorite memory, or what song would you have picked to be the 3rd single, or maybe even the 1st single, or what moves do you think she should have made during this era? Let me know in the comments below. We need to get the discussion. Let's get it started. Okay, cause Human, man, they was sleeping on Human. They was hating on Human, and they was sleeping on Human. Okay, they ain't know how to take it. It was too ahead of the game. It was too ahead of the time. But Brandy can sing any genre, and let the record show that she could sing anything, and it'll sound good. period. That's that vocal Bible. Okay, so let me know in the comments below. I will catch y'all in the next video, and then of course 211 is right around the corner. I don't have a date for it just yet, but it is coming. All right. All right.